Hello, here I'm going to demo another double exposure. This time this one's going to be where I cut out a part of the picture to show an interesting shape, and the other picture is going to show through. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to combine those pictures together. The one that has the shape that I'm going to cut out is going to be on top. So in this case, when I go to Window and choose Arrange, and I choose my pictures, I'm going to move this picture with the feet on top of the one with um, the cassette tapes. I'm going to do my consolidate to all tabs, so I'm just doing one view this time. So if I look at my layers, I've got layer 1, which is the picture that I will cut out, and then my other layer, which is showing the other scene. So in this case, I'm showing similarity between my perspectives, so both are looking down, they're both taken at the same place, and then variety with the actual subject matter, as well as texture. So I'm going to select the sidewalk because I want to keep the legs and the feet and the hand. So the quickest way would be to select the sidewalk because it's a solid color. A couple ways I could do this. I could simply go to Magic Wand and I could start doing my selections that way. It misses a few spots, but if I wanted to quickly select those spots, I could go to Lasso, make sure I'm on Add Selection, and then I can just quickly come in this area and come out to the outside. So it's not perfect because I've already created my close to perfect selection. And that's going to select any of those that are missing. It doesn't get quite up to the edge on some of the spaces, so quick selection might be my better option here. I'm going to do Add to Selection, and then I can come along here. Yeah, that looks good. And I'm going to quickly select anything that still needs to be a part of my selection. I'll make my brush bigger by using the bracket key, which are the left and right brackets to the right of the letter P on your keyboard. I think I can come around and grab any other spots that are missing. Then I'm going to come over here. I'm just going to click and paint with my paintbrush. Quick selection is the way to go. I'm going to get in this area, which took too much, so I'm going to undo with Control Z. I'm going to make my brush smaller. Then when I click in here, it should not grab quite as much. There we go. I want to grab this area, so I'm going to go to Subtract from Selection. Just clicking down to get those edges. That looks good. And then I need to add to my selection this area right here. All right, that looks like a good selection. I'm going to save it just in case I need that again. So I'll do Select, Save Selection. I'm going to give it a name. Say OK, and it'll be available if I need to use it again. So from here, I'm going to add my layer mask. So anything that's selected is going to stay. So when I go down to my layer mask, you can see, I can now see the sidewalk coming through. I can see that subject coming through. It creates an interesting design. I'm going to go in and add a little more contrast to make it pop more because the colors are a little too similar. But that's one option. When I look at my layers, I can see anything that was not selected is black and everything that is selected is white. One other way you could do this is inverse your selection. So select inverse. When I make my layer mask this time, it's going to keep what is there originally. This creates a whole different feel to the picture, but maybe I could do a blending mode if that makes sense. I could even change my opacity a little bit. So there's multiple ways that you could go about this and think about it. I'm going to stick with my original idea, which is having the cutout show through. So once again, I'm back to selecting the sidewalk only, add my selection, and this way I can see my other picture behind. I want to try and arrange my picture so that this is a little more centered. The cassette adapter is a little more centered in that circle. So I'm going to click on the background. I'm going to double click to unlock it, say OK, use my move tool, and I can move it to fit in that area a little bit more. If I decide this is the way I want to keep it, I would have to crop it to crop out this edge so that I don't see that in there. Okay, so now that I have this, I'm going to work with my color and contrast a little bit more. So I'm going to start with curves. I'm going to increase my contrast overall. I like the way that looks for the picture overall. Really pops my lights and darks nicely, especially on the bottom image. And then if I want to increase or work with the contrast and color just for the sidewalk to bring out more texture, I'm going to click on that layer. This time maybe I'll do curves again, or I could go to levels, which I'm going to show you instead. So I'm going to do levels, and this time I'm going to apply it just to my layer 1 that has the cutout on it. So in this version of Photoshop, I'm looking for the box that has the arrow going down. If you are using a school computer, you're going to look for 2 circles, a black and a white circle. And then what's going to happen is that I'm going to see this down arrow right here. It's going to apply it to that layer only. So then when I go to make my contrast and color changes, it'll work with just that one. And I can see a little more of the texture coming out with that change. I could also do color curves. I might want to do it over the whole picture. I'm going to try it just with levels this time. So it might be kind of cool to have it just on one layer. So like I showed you color curves, you can do color levels, similar idea, it's just controlled in a different way. So it's kind of cool to see the color of the sidewalk come through like this. And I'm going to try it with the green. So if I bring the greens down, it brings more of a blue color. I like the greenish tint, so I'm going to keep it that way. And then I'm going to see what it looks like with the blues as well. So it's a way, in this case, since I have such a simple background or a simple cutout, to bring a little more variety to it. Keep this down, let that green come through again. So you do have an option to play with the color to see what it looks like. I'm also going to add a little more contrast to part of the background just to make it look a little more interesting. So I'm going to click on layer 0, which is that background layer. This time I'm going to go to color curves because that's just what I'm choosing. And I will bring up the highlights, bring down the shadow area. I like how it brings out the texture. It gets a little bit dark in this area. So I'm just going to go to that layer mask. Click on my brush tool. I'm going to use black so that doesn't show through in there. Make my brush bigger. Cover that area. Increase my opacity. In this case, it was brought down, so I'll bring it back up. And that way I can click on this area, and that it doesn't apply the darkness to this area, but it'll apply it to the other areas that were already brighter. So you can be selective about that just by using your layer mask. And then if I want to add an interesting color to this layer, I'm going to go back to it. I'm going to choose a new layer because if I do the color curves on this, it won't show through in this part because of the mask on there. So I'm going to go here, start with my reds, see what it looks like when I bring them down or up. Maybe I'll do it a contrasting color than the one that's already there. Let's start with I'm going to end up bringing out more blues, so I won't do a ton with the reds to start. I can always go back and change it. Bring down the greens. That's kind of a cool color. And then I can see what it looks like when I adjust the blues as well. I don't want to overdo it. It should just be a slight cast to the color change. And then when I did that, it ended up making a little dark. So I'm just going to go and I'm going to brighten up this layer a little bit as well. So I like the background color. The other color is a little green. So then I can just go back to my levels here. Go back to where I was changing the color curves, and I can make some adjustments to that. Maybe I'll make it a little bit more neutral this time since I have more color in the background. I like the cutout. I like the contrast that comes through here. You have the option too, if you do the cutout, you could choose a blending mode. I don't want to lose that cutout though, so that would be the one thing to keep in mind. That's kind of cool, where I can see just a faint outline. Here, I can see the sidewalk, but it's letting some of the other texture come through. So you'll just have to kind of play with this. It's a trial and error type thing. In this case, ooh, that's kind of interesting. I like the normal. I'm just going to see what it looks like when I bring the opacity down a little ways. Not great. I'm going to keep it like this. I think that looks pretty cool. So from here, I'm going to double check my composition. Maybe I would crop out the right side to get this stuff right here closer to the rule of thirds. So I'm going to move this in just slightly, get that to the rule of thirds, enter to confirm, and then I have another double exposure.